Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Always. What are we digging into today?
Well, today we're heading over to Thailand. Their government's been shaking things up in their real estate market, making some pretty um, bold moves to try and give their economy a boost.
Oh, interesting. So is this going to be about investment opportunities or more about the overall economic picture?
Well, a little bit of both, actually. We're going to look at some articles that lay out all these new policies they're putting in place and try to figure out what they could mean, for people in Thailand, for foreign investors,
Yeah,
for everyone, really.
got it. Sounds fascinating. I know Thailand's economy hasn't been doing so great lately, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the whole point, I think. They've been falling way short of their growth targets, like way below 1% at the start of this year. It's a bit of a struggle for them right now.
Yeah, I remember reading something about that. The previous quarter, they only saw a 1.7% increase. Not exactly stellar.
Not at all. So the new prime minister, he's looking for like a quick win, and it
Yeah.
seems like he's putting a lot of his chips on the real estate market.
Interesting strategy. So how are they planning on attracting more buyers, especially in a slow economy?
Well, first off, they're trying to make things a lot easier for their own citizens, Thai people. They're slashing transaction fees on properties that cost under 7 million baht.
Oh, wow. By how much?
It's a pretty big cut going from 2% down to, wait for it, 0.01%.
Wow. 0.01%. That's practically nothing. Sounds like they're serious about getting people into homes.
Yeah, and it's not just that. They're also making it easier for people to get loans, especially lower income folks. And they're giving tax breaks to builders to try and encourage more construction.
So it's kind of a multi-pronged approach. Make buying easier, make building easier, make it easier to afford. It makes sense on paper, but
Hmm. What's the catch?
well, it just makes me wonder, will it really be enough to boost demand? Like, sure, lower transaction fees are great, but what about the overall cost of housing? Can people actually afford to buy in the first place, even with easier loans?
That's a really good point.
Hmm.
Just because it's slightly cheaper to buy doesn't mean it's suddenly affordable.
Exactly. And then there's the whole supply and demand thing. If they incentivize a bunch of new construction, but the demand isn't really there, won't that just lead to a surplus of properties? Could even drive prices down further?
Ooh, that's a whole other can of worms. And speaking of shaking things up, the thing that really caught my eye is this whole push to attract foreign investors.
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, historically, Thailand has had pretty strict rules about foreigners owning land, right?
Super strict.
Yeah.
Like, basically, all you could do was lease land for a limited time. But now, they're talking about letting foreigners actually own land outright.
Wow, really? Direct ownership. That's a huge change.
I know, right? It seems like a pretty radical shift for Thailand. It's definitely piqued my curiosity, to say the least.
Mine too. I wonder what prompted this sudden openness to foreign ownership.
Well, from what I've read, it seems like they're really hoping to attract a bunch of foreign capital.
Uh-huh.
Like they've had success with foreign investment in other sectors, so maybe they're hoping to like replicate that in real estate.
Makes sense. It's a way to bring in outside money to try and get things moving. But I do have to wonder, is it really going to be that simple? I mean, will foreign investors actually bite?
Right. Because it's not like they're just opening the floodgates to anyone.
Yeah.
There are some pretty hefty requirements if you actually want to buy land as a foreigner.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, first off, you got to have at least $1 million US in assets. So already that rules out like a lot of people.
Yeah, $1 million is no small chunk of change.
Definitely not. And then on top of that, you need to have a yearly income of at least 80,000 US dollars.
Yeah.
And as if that wasn't enough, you got to promise to invest at least 40 million Thai baht over 3 years.
Wait, 40 million baht? That's what, over $1 million US?
Yeah, it's gonna be like 1.2 million if I did the conversion right.
So basically, they're only interested in attracting the super rich.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
High net worth individuals only, please. Which, begs the question, is that really going to be enough to make a difference? Will they get enough of those super rich investors to actually move the needle?
It's a gamble for sure, and I imagine it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out.
Totally. I mean, one thing that's caught my attention is that apparently Chinese investors are already pretty keen on Thai real estate.
Ah, that's interesting. I wonder why.
Well, I mean, geographically, China and Thailand are pretty close, right? And
Oh.
they've got strong economic ties. Plus, China's middle class is growing rapidly, and they're looking for places to invest.
Yeah, all of that makes sense. It'll be interesting to see if other countries follow suit.
Oh, absolutely. And, thinking about all these changes, It seems like it would be a pretty exciting time to be a property developer in Thailand.
Yeah, I can see why you'd say that. I mean, you've got potentially lower costs, it's easier to get land, and there's this whole new pool of potential buyers, right? Sounds tempting.
It
Yeah.
does. But I feel like you're holding back a little. What's the catch?
Well, let's just say that Thailand isn't exactly known for its straightforward bureaucracy.
Oh, right. The infamous Thai red tape.
Exactly. Even with all these new incentives, there are still going to be hurdles to jump through. It's not a market for the faint of heart.
So developers beware. Do your homework, be prepared for some headaches, and then maybe, just maybe, it might be worth it.
Maybe. It's a bit of a wild card right now.
Totally. So for our listeners out there, it sounds like Thailand's really rolling the dice with these new real estate policies. What do you think? Do you think it'll be enough to kickstart their economy?
It's a big question mark. I mean, on the one hand, they're making some pretty significant changes, both for their own citizens and for foreign investors. But will it be enough to attract the kind of investment they're hoping for? And will it be enough to overcome the existing challenges? We'll have to wait and see.
Exactly. It's definitely a developing story, and there are a lot of potential outcomes. So, to our listeners, if you were a foreign investor, would you be tempted by these new opportunities in Thailand? What factors would you weigh? Let us know what you think.
Yeah, weigh in. This is a complex situation with a lot of moving parts. We'd love to hear your take on it.
And that's all the time we have for today. This has been such a fascinating deep dive into what's happening over in Thailand. It's a situation we'll definitely be keeping an eye on. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Catch you on the next deep dive.